The last 2 hours, testimony wrapped for the day in the massive Feeding Our Future meal fraud trial. Today's testimony built to a dramatic moment where a witness who already pleaded guilty talked about the kickbacks he paid to participate in the fraud. Lou Raguse was in the courtroom and joins us live. Lou?
And Julie, this was significant because up to this point, there had been evidence that looked bad for Amy Bach, but a lot of the fraud evidence was at least arm's length away from her. But today, the jury saw a check written by a cooperating defendant to what prosecutors believe was a shell company run only by Amy Bach.
Abdul Qadir Awale used to own 3 restaurants, including Sambusa King and Hopkins and Nawal Restaurant in Burnsville, that participated in the federal child nutrition program in 2020. He testified that he legitimately served about 300 meals per day at his restaurants and that it was the hardest work his staff ever did, so he quit after a week. But he testified that Feeding Our Future employee Abdi Kerm Idle convinced him to reconsider and that lots of other people were making big money by inflating the numbers. So Awale agreed to pose as a food vendor, claiming to provide thousands of meals every day from Sambusa King to other meal sites, including a nearby tutoring center, helping other sites steal $11 million while Awale kept $2 million himself. Prosecutor Matthew Ebert asked him, "Why did you do that?" Awale's response, "Basically, to get more money than I should." Awale also testified about paying kickbacks to Idle in order to continue participating in the fraud. The problem for prosecutors, Idle isn't currently on trial. They say he fled to Somalia when the feds began investigating. And not much of today's testimony seemed to center on former Feeding Our Future Executive Director Amy Bach or her co-defendant Salim Saeed. In cross-examination, Bach's lawyer Kenneth Udoybach asked, "Did you ever write a check to Amy Bach?" Awale said no. "Did you ever give cash to Amy Bach?" No. Then prosecutors came back with a gotcha moment, revealing that one of Awale's checks, written for $2,800 to school-age consultants, went into an account controlled only by Amy Bach.
Now, Bach's defense has been that at Feeding Our Future, those underneath her, such as Idle, were committing fraud without her knowing it. So this was the first direct payment to Bach that was shown to the jury, although a witness last week did testify about a donation that they provided to Bach. There's also been testimony and evidence that showed that Bach should have known that this fraud was going on beneath her because she was in charge of this nonprofit, and also because of the trouble she caused the education department once they became suspicious. Back to you.
Well, Lou, I know you've been following this since news broke that it was happening, and that's always been the question. How, if she was the mastermind, was she not getting paid so handsomely as these other alleged fraudsters were?
Yeah, and there definitely is not evidence that she received nearly as much money as these other defendants that we've heard about, but these amounts do add up, and we'll have to see how much more of that type of evidence prosecutors bring forward in this trial.
All right. Thank you, Lou.